Hi, happy Wednesday. Wednesday? Yeah, it's Wednesday today. So today I was talking to a friend of mine who was just telling me that 2 weeks ago, remember when there was the fire at Heathrow, and Heathrow got closed down for a day or 24 hours. Can't remember how long it was because or how long it was closed for because I wasn't traveling, so I wasn't really concerned as to how long it was closed for. All I know is there was a fire nearby and they closed all planes coming towards Heathrow or departing from Heathrow. So all the passengers coming in or going were either, nobody could land and nobody could take off. So everybody was affected. So she was telling me they came from somewhere where they were coming. I don't want to discuss somebody's personal business, but they departed from their airport and they were flying for about 3 hours. And all of a sudden, the pilot goes on the tannoy and starts saying, unfortunately, due to an unforeseen circumstances, we are returning back to our original airport where we just took off from. And everybody's confused at this time. Nobody really knows what's going on, but they're going back. So they did go back. They landed at the airport where they just took off from. And once they landed, they were not allowed to come out of the plane because they didn't know how long they were supposed to stay or stay at the airport for, or whether they will be eventually take off at some point. So they waited for, I think they were on the plane. She says they were on the plane for approximately 2 hours, and then they took off again and they started on their journey, and they were supposed to go to Heathrow. Obviously, they were supposed to go to Heathrow and they ended up landing in Glasgow, which was good because it was within the United Kingdom, so at least it was good. But the only problem was they got to Glasgow. They were offered a bus or National Express, some sort of replacement travel arrangement, but everybody was going to go on the same bus. So, but because they were not, she doesn't specifically live in London. She lives close, between London and Glasgow. So she was asking if they could reroute so they don't have to say they can drop her off somewhere else. And she was told, well, your final destination was going to be Heathrow. So because your final destination was going to be Heathrow, we will take you from where we pick you up at Glasgow Airport and drop you off somewhere within in the vicinity of Heathrow. I don't think they were going to Heathrow Airport itself because I don't think they were allowed to get within the Heathrow premises. So it was somewhere within the vicinity of West London, like Heathrow. So she's like, well, there's no point in me doing that because I might as well, because it's going to take another 2 hours to come back again. So she decided to get on a train and come from Glasgow to her hometown, and it probably took her less time to get home than the people who went all the way to London and then found their way to their respective homes. But it was just fascinating because she was so frustrated, and I was like, but at least you were on the plane and at least you knew eventually you'd be flying. I remember last year when I was in Toronto. I was in Toronto and got to Toronto, no problems, no issues. On the day I was meant to fly back from Toronto to I was flying to Gatwick. I was supposed to, I think in Toronto they've got two airports, Billy Bishop and something else. I can't remember. My memory is not 100% that good. If I think of the name, I'll let you know. But so my flight. So I was flying from Billy Bishop, then go to Quebec, and then from Quebec Airport fly to Gatwick. I tried to check in online while I was, the day before I tried to check in online and it wouldn't let me check in online. But because the airport is so close to the city, I just decided, okay, let me just go to the airport and try and see if somebody can check me in, because it was going to be quite an early flight. So I just decided there's no harm in me going. So I just walked down and, got to the airport, and they couldn't check me in. And I was like, this is strange. And she's like, oh, there's no problem. There's no problem. We can't check anybody in at the moment because it's I think they call them timeshare or something share flights, where you get on one type of plane from one destination to another, and then you get on another plane from one destination to another. So they say they can't check me in tonight. So they will have to, when I come in tomorrow, they'll do it. And there was no problem. And I said, is there any problem? No problems at all. So the next day, early in the morning, about 7:30, because my flight was supposed to leave at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, either 9:30, I would say 9:30 or 10, maybe 9:30, I can't remember the time. But I was on the shuttle bus from the train station at about 7:30, because I needed to be at the airport at least 2 hours, because it was an international flight. So a little bit earlier. So I got there, I got to the airport, and I'm standing, I get to the counter. The person manages to check us in. Everybody who's standing in, everybody who's going to Quebec City is all being checked in. And we go downstairs and we're sitting, and you look at the board. So you go downstairs where, after you check in, you go through security, everything else. You look at the board, and all the flights that were above, that should have left before ours, were all saying cancelled, cancelled, cancelled. But ours was saying, please take a seat and we'll update you. So we'll update you the details of the gate later. But every other flight was saying cancelled, 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 except, so what they were doing was cancelling all the flights as they were approaching, like within 2 hours or something. They would then cancel it, and then they will keep people sitting there, but not tell people what's actually going on. So we're sitting there, I'm sitting, so now it's coming. So if my flight was supposed to leave at 9:30, this is now coming towards 12 o'clock, and they're still saying, take a seat and we'll update you. So eventually they start calling, let's say the first flight, people from the first flight, please come to your desk so we can rearrange or reschedule your flight. So people get to the desk and they're being told, oh, we will change your flight, you can go on Monday. So this was a Friday, and somebody's telling somebody to say, oh, you can leave on Monday, we've got a flight for you leaving on Monday. It didn't even make sense at all. Anyway, eventually our flight got called, because they was trying not to get everybody to overwhelm the staff. So they were only calling certain each flight as it's to the desk. And then eventually I went to the desk and I said to the lady, I need to catch up. My flight at Quebec City would be leaving at midnight. So initially I'd given myself, I had a lot of time, because it was only going to be like an hour and a half from Toronto to get to Quebec City. And I was planning on spending the whole day sightseeing, doing all sorts of things in Quebec City. It was going to be a beautiful day and I had loads of time, all those things. And she's like, well, unfortunately, we've got a flight for you going to Quebec City on Tuesday. I think she said Tuesday. And I'm like, today is Friday, and you want me to wait until Tuesday to travel for an hour and a half on a plane in the same country? You know, where am I going to stay? Number one, I've got commitments. I'm supposed to be back at work. Even though it was nice that they were offering alternative flights, but the alternative flights didn't make sense to anybody, because there's no reason why I would book a flight on a Friday if I can, if my travel arrangements are that relaxed that I can then just turn up at the airport on a Tuesday. And on that day, I was even saying, if I came on Tuesday and there's a problem, so she's like, well, we're not going to know until Tuesday. So it doesn't make sense. You're not 100% sure. You're just giving me a date because she's saying, well, other people who were in front of you have already got the flight. So the first flight was going to be on Monday, and then the next one on Tuesday, and the next one on Thursday. So whoever got to the desk first was offered the flight on Monday. And then obviously by the time I got to the desk, it was time for the Monday one was already full. So anyhow, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I was so annoyed. So I was there was another guy who was going to Montreal, and I says to him, why don't we get like we both hire a car, and then we just drive, and then from Montreal I can then go to Quebec City on the train or something, because my flight was not going to be until midnight anyway, almost midnight. So I had lots of time. And then the guy was like, oh, I can't really drive here. So just like I'm scared of driving. I thought he was like Canadian. So I was like, because I would have if I was confident enough, but I hadn't been on the roads that much in Toronto in such a way that I would feel comfortable enough to just go to Enterprise and rent a car and then start driving like a 10-hour journey. I didn't think I would be able to do that on my own. But if I was with somebody, we could probably have swapped, like he drives at the beginning, I get to learn the roads, and then when we are on the motorway or a straight road, I can easily go, and then when we get to the city. So I was that's what we had actually discussed it. And he's like, oh, I thought you could you could do it. And I'm like, I don't think I'm comfortable enough to do that. So anyway, and then eventually I just thought, I'm not hanging about. These people are playing with me. And I knew that if I didn't get a flight from that, if I wasn't gonna leave Toronto that night or that morning or during the day, I was not going to make my flight to Quebec, and I'm not going to make my flight to London Gatwick. So I decided, since there are no flights flying from Billy Bishop, I went to, it's called Pearson, something Pearson. Something Pearson Airport. I went to the other airport. So I get to the other airport at this point. So I got in the train, got to the other airport, and then I called the airline, and I'm like, well, the flight that's coming from Billy Bishop, they're not flying, but there are flights coming from here that are going direct to Heathrow. To Gatwick. So can I swap my ticket to go direct to Gatwick? So they're like, oh no, you can't swap it right now. It's a long process. You have to cancel your ticket. So I said, okay, I'll cancel my ticket. And it takes a bit of time. The process was a little bit long. So eventually I said to the person, can I just buy another ticket? Because they had promised me that I would get my refund anyway. So I managed to buy another ticket, which I did. And the flight was leaving at 6:45 in the evening. And I was at Pearson International Airport maybe by 2 o'clock, 2:30. So I had lots of time. But when they when they sold me the ticket, it doesn't automatically reflect on the boarding, for the guys to start boarding me in or to check me in. So the guy I had spoken to, who was at the counter, he knew. He says, as soon as give yourself 15 minutes, after 15 minutes come back, let's check again, and then come back every 15 minutes. So I was they had like a very long queue, and every 15 minutes I kept going back to him. I literally kept going back to him, and then eventually it worked. It was perfect. But the only problem is, oh my God, that flight, because obviously the other flights had been delayed. That flight was full. It was packed, literally packed to the brim. But that wasn't the problem. We were flying. It was like 6 hours. It's not such a big deal. So it's only 6 hours. It was in the night. Arrived in Heathrow sorry, I keep saying Heathrow, at Gatwick at 7 a.m. Went to pick up our car and then drove home. And I actually managed, within about 3 weeks, got a full refund, not just the refund of the return ticket, but the full refund of the whole flight, which was quite fascinating. The only reason why they did that was because the actual flight was cancelled. So they just literally, I was so surprised. And they didn't even send me an email, because obviously what I did was fill in a form online and say the reasons why I'm claiming my flight. And because I'd already spoken to a person who had told me that, that's basically what you need to do, and you get all your money back. And so I basically flew to Toronto, came back for free. So I got my full refund. But it was actually it was really good that I got all the money that I had spent, but I still got the experience of being, like in Toronto for 2 weeks. So it was actually, I'm really, it was quite a surprise to me, because they didn't even send me an email to say your money has been put in your account or anything. I don't usually like check my bank account or whatever that often, but when I did check, and I'm like, this is so strange. They just literally just deposited the money in my account without, straight away, without me. Because a lot of other companies, you call them nonstop to get a refund, or you're emailing and whatnot. But I obviously, I felt really lucky, and I felt very grateful that they did that without me pushing and, probing and getting stressed out over it. But I was grateful for the company, the airline, and I'm happy that happened to me. So it was just, I was trying to say to my friend, you had your bad experience, but I'm sure you can still claim some money back for what happened. Because I think when something like that happens, especially the fact that they were sitting on a plane for like 2 hours, they should be entitled to some sort of refund. And I think most companies, you've got insurance anyway, so most companies will probably pay them back. And that was probably the only time I've had such a bad not the experience itself was so frustrating. But as soon as I knew I was getting a flight from the other airport, from Toronto, from Pearson, Toronto Pearson, or Pearson Toronto Airport, whatever it's called, I got quite relaxed because I knew I was coming home, and it wasn't about the refund, it wasn't about the money, it was just about getting home. And I wouldn't have cared so much about the refund. Obviously, I would have wanted it. I would have carried on pushing for it, but it wasn't my main concern. My main concern was arriving back home on the Saturday, spending the whole day on Sunday, getting ready for Monday morning so I could start work. I had no intention of taking an extra day, just because it was weather related anyway, so it would have been dangerous for them to take off from Billy Bishop. So I do understand that situation, but it did not help the fact that the ladies at the counter did not really give out any information. They could have done a little bit more. Their customer service was terrible. I've not seen people who are so not trained in customer service. I don't know whether Canada is just basically like that all across, where I cannot explain how terrible their customer service was. It was a person that was like, imagine everybody. I know that there were, like they had so many customers, they had so many people, they were talking to so many people, but it just make an announcement to say, due to weather, none of the flights are going to fly. Don't make us sit there. Don't make us guess what's going on. Don't make us feel like, oh, there's going to be a flight that's going to take off at some point. Don't give us any hope. Just tell us, and then we make our alternative arrangements. Because if I had known at 10 o'clock, if I had known at 7 o'clock when I first got there, I would have literally not even gone downstairs. I would have just gone to the other airport and tried and found my way. I would have probably just got another airline. But lucky enough, I was still talking to the airline, Transat. That was my original airline. So because I was talking to them and they had told me that there's another flight coming, that's how I knew there was a flight that was going to go straight to Gatwick. So if they had just said that to everybody, just make alternative arrangements and leave the airport. And people will leave the airport. People will make arrangements, but don't make people seem like, don't treat people like they're stupid. But it wasn't just the whole airport atmosphere. It was the ladies themselves, not ladies as such, but there were also men serving. But the people that were serving at the counter, they were so rude. It was, Billy Bishop, whatever your customer service whoever trains the employees on customer service needs to get fired, because they have no customer service experience. They do not know that the customer should be informed or should be respected or should be treated. We're all human beings. If it was on the other foot, I don't think they would have enjoyed it. It is their job, yes. It is part of a job, but you're also dealing with people. It's different when you're dealing with cattle or chickens or whatever. You're dealing with people, and people can think, people can see, people can make decisions on their own. So just give us the information that we need and we move on with our lives. And it was just terrible customer experience. I probably would never go to that airport ever again. It's a small airport. So now I know. Now I know if I'm going to Toronto, I know exactly where to land, and I will not be going to the Billy Bishop airport, because that was not an experience that I would ever want to repeat, and I would never recommend anybody to fly from there ever. Anyway, happy Wednesday.